Okay, a big show coming up, a lot to get to, but now let's bring in Shadow Foreign Affairs Minister Michaelia Cash. Michaelia, thank you very much for your time. Do you agree with the sentiments expressed by Netanyahu in his letter to Albanese that he's a weak politician who is appeasing terrorists?
Well, yes, I do, and the direct evidence is there. Mr Albanese has indeed rewarded the terrorists Hamas, who butchered and slaughtered Israelis on October the 7th, 2023. And in fact, he's given them what they themselves have described as the fruits of October 7. Sharri, I have a very simple principle. You don't reward terrorists, and that is exactly what our Prime Minister, Mr Albanese, has done. It is a disgrace.
There have been attempts to blame Netanyahu today for the tense relationship. But why shouldn't Israel respond to more than 2 years of hostile foreign policy and rhetoric from the Albanese government?
Well, Sharri, I've been asking myself this question. How do you get to a state in Australia where diplomatic relations with one of our closest allies, Israel, actually implodes? I mean, this happens to be the situation. Israel is a democratic nation that is fighting for its very existence against terrorists whose sole aim is to wipe them off the planet. And yet, the same terrorists are actually delighting in what our Prime Minister is saying, and indeed they are praising him. I mean, Mr Albanese has a lot of explaining to do in terms of A, how he has managed to destroy a relationship with a close democratic ally, but B, what is he going to do, Sharri, to get this relationship back on track? Why? Because ultimately this is a long and enduring relationship. We've stood together now for decades and decades and decades, going back to the Battle of Beersheba. But more than that, Israel and Australia share intelligence. And as you'd know, in 2017, Israel assisted Australia in thwarting a terrorist operation when a plane was going to take off from Sydney Airport and potentially kill hundreds of Australians. The assistance that the Israeli government gave us meant that we were able to thwart that terrorist operation. So, look, I shake my head. The Israelis, the democratic nation, our relationship has imploded. The terrorists who are killing people are praising Mr Albanese. I mean, Mr Albanese has a lot to answer for, but in particular, how do we now get this relationship back on track?
I just don't believe it is going to get back on track under this government. I think it will in the future under a different government.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you look at Tony Burke, pro-Palestinian activist for over a decade. Anthony Albanese, pro-Palestinian activist for more than 2 decades. So it was always going to end up like this. You know, I don't want to say I've been warning everyone, but I have for years, since 2022. This is always where it was going to end up because they are just, at least in their adult years, lifelong activists. I want to ask you about these comments, though, that Tony Burke made today. I mean, he ignored the point of Netanyahu's letter and then he continued to, in the worst way possible, demonise Israel today, claiming it was just bombing civilians and starving children. Here was that shocking... Let's play that shocking comment again.
Strength is not measured by how many people you can blow up.
Michaelia Cash, is this Hamas propaganda from the Home Affairs Minister?
Well, Hamas would certainly welcome the comments by the Home Affairs Minister. I mean, without a doubt, he was playing to a domestic audience. They were disgusting, they were deplorable, they were reckless, and quite frankly, they have done nothing to calm the fears of the Jewish community in Australia in relation to the rising anti-Semitism. I mean, this is what Tony Burke, as a minister, has done. He has said on the record now that Israel, a democratic ally, that is fighting for its life against terrorists whose one objective in life is to wipe them off the face of this earth. He has now said they measure their strength by the number of people that they kill and the number of children that they starve, that is just an absolute disgrace when they're fighting for their life. But you see, Tony Burke, Sharri, has also forgotten this. Hamas are the terrorists. They are actually the one who butcher and slaughter people. But he also forgot this important point, which you and I are prepared to say. Hamas use their own people, the Palestinians, women and children, as human shields. In other words, the terrorists kill their own people. And yet Tony Burke has the audacity to make those comments about Israel. But Sharri, you make a good point about the Prime Minister. Where's the Prime Minister asking Mr Burke to apologise? And in fact, I would have thought that Tony Burke's now had over 12 hours to reflect on those comments. And I would have thought he should have come to the conclusion that given the seriousness of what he has now alleged against Israel, he would actually be apologising both to the Israeli people but also to Australian Jews who don't feel safe under this government.
Exactly. And his comments are just plain wrong. Israel is delivering the aid. The proof is there.
Absolutely.
It's UN
Correct.
that's not distributing enough of it and Hamas that's stealing it.
And it's Hamas who are taking it.
Exactly.
Correct. Hamas are taking it for their own people.
Exactly. I just want to ask you about how this could affect Australia's relations with the United States. Do you think Albanese could be risking Australia's alliance with the United States by antagonising Israel in this way? Because this is also about America's security interests and the way America votes at the United Nations.
Well, I mean, I think you already have credible commentators are now saying that Australia is slipping from a first-tier ally of the United States to a third-tier ally. I would argue that unfortunately started occurring some time ago, well before the decisions in relation to the recognition of a Palestinian state, while the terrorists, Hamas, are still in charge of Gaza and Israeli hostages are still being held in the tunnels. But I mean, these types of comments should actually start to really worry Australians, because when you no longer have a good reputation in Washington, that has a direct impact on our security. The United States-Australia, or the Australia-US alliance, Sharri, that is the bedrock of our security as a country. Who do people think we're picking up the phone to when it all goes wrong? So I think Mr Albanese is in very, very dangerous territory when it comes to turning away from the United States. Yes, it does put Australia's national security ultimately at risk. I mean, that's more than evident with the fact that he still hasn't been able to get a face-to-face meeting with the President of the United States. I mean, what more do we need? It's an absolute disgrace.
It really is. I mean, it's ticking up to close to 10 months since he was elected. It really is a disgrace. Michaelia Cash, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.